An impressive win is followed by a disappointing loss. What to make of this yin and yang weekend for the Nashville Predators?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for making us your first stop of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. I want to start off by shouting out all of our Locked On Predators podcast community and our everydayers who tune in and chat all things Preds every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. My name is Jack Williams, and I am the Nashville Predators beat writer for the Hockey News and the host of the Locked On Predators podcast. And we're ready to talk about what has been a wild weekend for the Nashville Predators and what kind of was predicted was going to be that way. It was either going to be really disappointing or really crazy. And we kind of ended up with a place in the middle of crazy, insane, wild, for lack of a better word. It was chaos in the sense they didn't win both games, but they didn't lose both games. They split them, but in the sense of one was a really bad loss and one was an unbelievable victory. That was a 7-3 win over the Colorado Avalanche on that Friday, which was monumental in many ways, and we'll get into it in a second, followed by 24 hours later, a brutal loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. And coming up to the schedule, I think we all knew that this was going to be an interesting stretch for the Predators and them playing very well, testing them and seeing how good they were going to be against two of the top teams in the league. One of them being the top team in the league, Colorado. Vegas hanging out in the top of the Pacific standings right now. But we'll get into it right now. I don't want to spoil too much because as you can see on the side, that's how we're dividing up today's podcast of what happened in Denver, what happened in Las Vegas, and then what to make up of all of this, because it puts you in a weird mind space coming out of it. They played really well, then they had a really bad result against the Golden Knights. Are they bad? Are they good? Was this legit? Was this kind of fake in the sense that we were looking at it and this wasn't real? It was kind of a fluke. I'll talk about the way I don't want to justify about what you guys should think, but how I think about all this and maybe give you guys some guidance too about how to make up what all of this means. But we'll get right into it. I'll stop running around it because we have a lot to talk about with the Colorado game. 7-3 win over the Avalanche. If you guys haven't been keeping up with the Avalanche this year, this was Colorado's first regulation loss at home. And for how crazy this is, it's January. Most teams have lost way over 5 games at home. It was their first regulation loss home. Most teams, if not all of them at this point, have lost at least 1 game at home. They probably at least lost 5 at home at this point. It was their 5th regulation loss of the year. In that as well, most teams have lost, I would say, at least 8 games. The best teams have probably lost at least 8 games. In a normal season, at least everyone's lost, or most teams have lost 10 in regulation at this point. 5 is an insane number, and that's recent. For the longest time, that number was hanging around 3 and 4 for a long time. But the Predators have been kind of flirting with this a little bit in the sense of they've played Colorado very well this year. And in my opinion, I'd argue they might be the best team in the league to play Colorado this year in that matchup and it being competitive. The first loss was coming out of that stretch where Nashville was just brutal, coming off of the Global Series weekend, and then Pratt saying, yo, what's going on? This needs to be turned around. They lose 3-0 to the Avalanche at home after that conversation, but it felt like a 1-0 game as Brent Burns scored 15 seconds into the game. It was 15 seconds in the game. I'm like, that seems a little crazy, but it was. It was 15 seconds into the game, and then 2 empty net goals. It's a 3-0 loss. Didn't really feel that way because the Predators really competed. Next time Colorado comes to town, Predators compete with them for the majority. and it's a back and forth game. Eventually, Brady Shea scores, and the Predators have a lead going into the final 7 minutes of regulation. Eric Hall takes a really bad tripping penalty. Colorado ties it with 8 seconds left off a goal from Cale Makar, and we're going to overtime. And that was the Predators' opportunity to hand Colorado, I believe at the time it would have been its third or fourth regulation loss of the year. Predators get it done in a shootout, still a massive win. Then they go off to Denver, rough 4-2 loss there, but just Justus Annunen plays fantastic in that game, debatably one of his better games of the year. And then we come to now, and this win that they pulled out, which they didn't just win, they dominated them in a 7-3 win. This is also the most goals that the Avalanche have given up this season. Fifth regulation loss of the year. Again, first regulation loss at home. And then talking about this being the first regulation loss at home, they were still picking up points in every single game that they played at home, which is ridiculous to talk about. It snapped a 22-game point streak that Colorado had this as well. And the passing storyline of all this, which is kind of hilarious in my opinion, is there's all this that I mentioned. Ryan O'Reilly had a hat trick in this game, and that was kind of the secondary story to all of this. It's 7th career hat trick, and running through all the goals again, it's kind of wild how he got this hat trick, because it's just him getting pucks on net, getting in front of the net, placing the puck in the right spot, and he ended up with a 7th career hat trick. But we'll jump right into it and debrief this game a little bit for y'all. I know this will be 2 games ago for y'all, 2 days ago, excuse me, but yeah, 2 games too, and a little bit since we're coming into the week and starting off fresh, but it was just a crazy weekend. We need to talk about all of this and debrief y'all. He scored 30 seconds into the game off of a nice backhand and an even better feed from Philip Forsberg. And you got to talk about with Philip Forsberg, his just passing abilities. I know I talk about a ton about his shot, which is, and we're going to talk about it again today because he did score a few times and he just has a beautiful shot, but his passing abilities are fantastic. Man is elite. He is elite. But Predators score 30 seconds into the game on the board, and it's the whole thing, as I mentioned, and you can go back to the Oilers podcast about how I said they needed to do this specifically right, and that was just take it to them right off the faceoff. The Oilers game, it required them, McCarron dropping the gloves 3 seconds into the game. Let the Predators score to go up 1-0. Now here, they kind of did something similar, didn't fight, but they took it right to Colorado, and they ended up on the board. And I said they needed to carry that mentality through from the Oilers game to this game in order to have a chance, and that's exactly what they did. They're giving it to them. They're pushing play right from puck drop, 1-0 immediately. However, the Avalanche did respond less than a minute later, and it's 1-1. This is part of it too. Is the big thing is just keeping pace with this team as well, and if you get a step in front of them, odds are they're going to meet you right there. And the next move for them is just to keep taking that one step to the point where we see in this game that Colorado misses a step that allows the I keep wanting to say Golden Knights because that's the team coming up, but it's not. We're talking about the Predators. The Predators eventually, in talking about this kind of steps that we're talking about, the Avalanche won't be able to make that step in this game, and that allows the Predators to make 2 steps forward and just keep moving at that pace. Even if it is kind of an even pace at one point, if Colorado can't keep up at one point, Nashville's still taking that one step ahead. And that's what we kind of saw in this game. But O'Reilly was credited with his 2nd goal of the game, and he didn't score. He didn't score it. He wasn't the one that put the puck into the net, but he was the last Predator to touch the puck. He was trying to feed the puck to Evangelista from behind the net. And what he was doing, essentially, like I said, he was feeding it from behind the net. He kind of threw it out in front, and then Samuel Girard got his stick, tried to intercept it, and his stick tapped it, and it went 5-hole on Blackwood. So he ended up scoring on his own net, but O'Reilly got credited with the goal. It's 2-1. And then the Avalanche tie it up 2-2. And again, like I said, it's take one step ahead, and they're probably going to meet you. But the key is just to keep taking a step until the Avalanche can't meet up with you, or this team cannot meet up with you. Second period, 2-2 tie at the end of the first period. The second period, Evangelista takes a long shot from the top of the left circle, and that is tipped in from Ryan O'Reilly, and it's 3-2, and Ryan O'Reilly has suddenly scored all 3 goals, and in the second period, he has a hat trick. And it's just a funny way to get this off of a tip, off of a credited goal, and then the first goal is the one that really kind of truly came off of his shot. Again, got a tip on the third one, so he did make contact with it. But just kind of a funny way to go about it for sure. But it's a good way to go about it, especially against these teams where you need to find any way to score, take any opportunity you can to score. And O'Reilly did that in this game, and it gave the Predators a 3-2 lead and a 7th career hat trick. And the point of it, too, mentioning is that, and we'll bring up Saros' performance at the end because his presence was elite. But at the time of this hat trick, the Predators were getting outshot 27-16, and they were leading this game. It's just about just getting pucks to the net and finding areas you can score and take advantage of, and the Predators did exactly that in this game. 4th goal, Stamkos steals the puck in the Preds' high slot. He takes up the ice on his own, and then he has a defensive amount at the time. He's able to get it to Michael Bunting on the left side. Bunting gets a wrist shot on net. It goes in. Suddenly, it's 4-2 with 2 minutes left in the second period, and the Predators are taking a 4-2 lead into the locker room with 20 minutes left in this game in Denver, on the brink again, a brink of handing the Avalanche a regulation loss, and on the brink of handing them their first regulation loss at home. Then Martinez just scores 4-3 in the beginning of the third period, and suddenly it's a 1-goal game. But as I mentioned, this is where the Predators continue stepping forward, and the Avalanche start missing those steps there. Philip Forsberg scores on the power play from the top of the right slot. Again, just a great shot. This man is unbelievable at shooting the puck. It's 5-3. At the time when this goal went in, the Predators were being outshot 40-26, and they have a 5-3 lead. They're just find a way to win, find a way to compete. You don't have to have the most shots on goal in order to win the game. It's obviously ideal, but finding your opportunities, getting pucks to the net, scoring, that is exactly what they did in this game. And I'll probably mention it 3 more times because that was so critical, and just they were outshot to heck, and they managed to win this game. Avalanche poll, Mackenzie Blackwood. Steven Stamkos scores on a long empty netter. It's 6-3. Michael McCarron then scores on a close empty netter. It's 7-3 because the man can just use his frame to walk himself all the way to the net, slide it right in. That was his first goal since October, so it's nice to see Michael McCarron get a little bit of an offensive reward with that. And that was all she wrote. That was 7-3 in Colorado. Who would have thought that the Predators would be the ones to end this streak? I don't think a lot of people thought. As I mentioned, this Predators team has been unbelievably good at competing with Colorado this year. In my opinion, the best, maybe in being a little bit more broader, one of the best in the league, but they've given them some really good games, and this being the final matchup of the regular season, we don't know what may happen towards the end of the year when it comes to the standings, but this being the final meeting of the regular season, it lived up to the hype. It was really just a build and rewarding. UC Saros, massive in this victory, 39 saves on 42 shots. He has been critical in every game he has played against this team. This year, shootout game, made all the saves in the shootout. I believe the Avalanche did not score in that shootout round. They didn't score in overtime, obviously, but he's been massive in this series this year. And talking about everything he's able to do. But as I mentioned, the big thing was this: they stuck pace with them. They stuck pace throughout the game. Got on them early, knew it was going to be a game where Colorado was going to respond to what they did. We're fine with that, but just kept progressing and staying with what they wanted to do, and eventually broke them in the end, broke the Avalanche in the end, and allowed the Predators to go forward with the win. Associate coach Luke Richardson spoke after the game. Andrew Brunette was dealing with shingles, so he was not available, and he was not available after the Vegas game either. But one of the quotes that really stuck out to me from him was he mentioned that last time they were in Denver, Colorado did a lot of flexing and said they kind of flexed their game, and that kind of intimidated Nashville a little bit and kind of ended up seeing their game escape from them a little bit more. And they talked about that coming into Friday's matchup. and not essentially, I don't think he said not being afraid, but a sense of don't be intimidated by that, stick it to them, continue playing, compete them, and eventually it ended up falling apart on Colorado and allowing the Predators to win. I thought that was an interesting quote of just saying they flexed their talents, they flexed what they're good at last game. That kind of intimidated us into a loss a little bit more, and we didn't take that mentality in this time, and we brought it to them. And Philip Forsberg said this is the next step for them in playing good games and competing against the top teams in the league. And I will leave that there because that's where we'll get into the second segment, which is the Vegas game, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. I don't want to spoil too much away, but we'll get into our first break here. So hang on with me, and when we get back, we will talk about, excuse me, y'all, what happened in Las Vegas on Saturday. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boosts give you more juice on your bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger playouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. So now we're on to Vegas and talking about Forsberg's quote a little bit. And I don't put any of this on him at all in the sense of, well, this kind of looks bad now. It is kind of the next step the Predators need to take in competing and winning against the best teams in the NHL. Because if you want to get into a wild card spot, you're going to be playing the first round against one of the best teams divisionally in the league, whether that be the Pacific or the Central. And their next step is they have been ragdolling on the worst teams in the league. They've been really competing and winning against kind of those teams that are in similar spots as them when we're talking about getting into the wild card. And now the next step would be obviously to compete and play against the best team in the league. With that, 24 hours after the Colorado win, they're in Vegas, who leads the Pacific Division, and it was a 7-2 loss for the Predators in Las Vegas. 8th straight win for the Golden Knights since they got healthy. They have been rolling, and it's back-to-back games for Nashville in this stretch, as I've mentioned before multiple times, that they played Friday and then they played Saturday. And there was no difference in the times that these games were played. They were both played at 7 p.m. locally. It was like 8 here, 9 here. It's 7 p.m. locally, wherever they are. And they're on the road too in a back-to-back. Vegas had Friday off, so they had one more day to buffer, and they're at home too. But Nashville had one lead in this game. That was off of an Evangelista shot that was tipped from Roman Josi to make it 1-0. Again, if there was one good thing that they did in this game that they need to continue doing throughout the entire year and hadn't done for 10 games previously, was that they are coming out of the gate, giving it to the team that they are facing and taking a lead. They did that against Vegas here and gave them their only lead of the game. They did it against Colorado, which led to a win. They did it against Edmonton, which led to a win. And these are against good teams, and they know that they need to be doing this against these good teams to get a foot up on them no matter what. But 1-0 lead. First period was good. If we just turned off the game in the first period, it would be blissful. And we didn't hear what the final score was. Roman Josi had an assist on this. He has 10 points in 4 games. He had 3 points against the Avalanche, and they had 2 points against the Golden Knights. He has a point on the final goal of this game, which will come much later. Final goal for the Predators in this game, which will come much later. And then they had the lead at the first period, which is good. And they played well throughout the second period too. Stayed 1-0 for the majority of the second period. And then right in that critical window, in any sport, you can argue that this is an important window, the final minutes of the quarter period, whatever, and then the beginning of the quarter period, whatever the next frame, are crucial, essentially. Vegas scores twice in that frame, and both goals were created on traffic in front of Onanen. I don't, watching the highlights, I cannot remember if he argued or to show displeasure in wanting a goaltender interference call, but they kind of overwhelmed him in front of the net in that slot area, and the puck ended up going in, just creating a ton of traffic in front of him. He's a big guy, so just getting in front of him, screening, that's what created this opportunity for the Golden Knights. 2 quick goals, and suddenly it's 2-1 going into the break before the third period. Now, quick goals are the bread and butter for the Golden Knights. And covering this team last year, they did this a lot, essentially, where they just rolled with momentum. If they scored once, they immediately scored again. It's loud in that arena, and they took advantage of everything that everything that they got from the crowd, and everything that their opponent gave them, they would jump on and they would do it quickly. And it was a theme in this game. So we'll get into the third period, which was kind of a meltdown. It was a 5-goal period for the Golden Knights. In this stretch of the game, they scored 7 unanswered goals. But the third period here, 2 goals were on 2-on-1s. Those were the first 2 goals of the period. So it was the goals that led to a 3-1 lead and then a 4-1 lead. Essentially, it looks like the first one, it was a little bit more room on the 2-on-1. The defense were pinching too high, or they could not get back quick enough, allowed Vegas to get into the zone 2-on-1 and then score. And then the second goal, I didn't write down who scored because I know you guys probably don't care who scored for the Golden Knights. But the Golden Knights offensive player just got around the D-man and created a 2-on-1 opportunity from inside the zone, and then ended up scoring. Just a rough look for the defense. Second goal to make it, not the second goal, excuse me. This is the third goal of the period to make it 5-1. That was a quick pass to the slot. Nobody was there. Goal scorer ended up scoring. The goal to make it 6-1 was another quick goal, and it was just a nice wrist shot from Marner. He was coming into the zone, had a guy on him. I think it was Yossi. Shot the puck, went in opposite side of Onanen, and it's 6-1. It's a hard shot to stop. He was a good goal scorer's goal, so I'll give him that. And then the final goal by the Golden Knights to make it 7-1. It was similar. It was quick again, because I know these goals were quick. I didn't do the time calculations in my head, but you just, in the highlight video, you can hear the previous goal, and most of these highlights being announced as the next one is being scored. So they're at least at max 2 minutes apart. So they're quick, they're scoring, they're jumping on top of whatever they're getting. And what happened on this final goal was Tomas Hertl passed to a wide open Keegan Kolesar, who was right in front of the net. I do not know why Kolesar was just on an island by himself, just hanging out with Justus Onanen right there, because nobody was on him. I don't know if it was the fact that they wanted to leave Kolesar open and assuming that he wasn't going to score. Keegan Kolesar does play bottom 6 minutes, but this is the Golden Knights, and they're getting supplementary help from everybody. So he scored, make it 7-1. In the final minute, Philip Forsberg scores on the power play off a wrist shot in traffic, a good shot through traffic, and it's 7-2. Roman Josi gets a point. Philip Forsberg has scored 2 goals in the last 2 games, but not much to celebrate there, scoring in the final minutes of a 7-2 loss. But from what I saw, the defense just looked really slow. I don't blame too much on the offense here, essentially, as they did get 29 shots on net in this game. Having 20 next to it, in my opinion, when it's 29, like, obviously, I think it's a good night when you get 30 shots on that in any game. So 29, you're like 1 shot short of that. So I don't think it was a bad night by the offense. The defense just looked slow, especially in those 2-on-1 goals where they're pinching high or they're not hard enough on the defender, where you're just letting the guy come in. Or it's the whole thing that we saw in the first Edmonton game, the 6-2 loss, I believe it was, in Edmonton, where you're just leaving guys open in the slot. And this team, when I think they get overwhelmed like that, they just tend to do that over and over again. And there was a lot of that in this game too, where you're just leaving guys to sit there the whole time. So the defense looks slow in my opinion. And then Onanen on those first 2 goals, he just looked overwhelmed essentially in those 2 second period goals. And that can be credited to the defense again for just not doing a good job of clearing the slot for him and making sure they're not coming up on him. Because again, on those first 2 Golden Knight goals, he looked like he was in a city essentially, just surrounded by buildings because there was guys all around him. So it just needs to be better with clearing the slot for him. And I've said this multiple times before of just their slot management is just not amazing when we're talking about the Predators, where on both ends of the ice, where they'll get in front of the net and they'll let their opponents plug up stuff and that leads to scoring. But it's even worse on the other end when we're talking about on the rush, I should say, where you have the opponent rushing in or you having guys just park right there and just being able to score. Their slot management is just not great. It's gotten better, but that is, in my opinion, the biggest downfall of the defense so far is that their just slot management has just been no bueno. But I'll stop talking about this game. It's in the past. And then we'll get on to the final segment, which is what in the world, what in the world, what in the heck do we make up of all of this? You have a really good win and then a really bad loss. What do we make up of all of this? That's coming up. But before we get into the final segment, I want to talk to you guys about the Everyday Club. Everyday Club. Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everyday Club today and get Locked On Predators with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonpredators.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. When we come back, I'll give some guidance. Maybe I'll give my own self some guidance. Maybe I'll give myself some guidance. Own self? What are we doing here, y'all? I don't know what I'm doing here. Anyway, we're going to talk about some ads coming up. We're coming up and talking about some ads. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing in this break. And then we'll talk about what to make all about this weekend. So stick with me. If you ever hired someone who looks good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not resume buzzwords. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your posts to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. I just struggle. I don't know if you guys have listened to the ad, that ad that I just did. I struggle with that every episode, and I do not know why. I run through it, and it's a mess. It's a mess for me, but it's a good deal from Indeed. See, I'm messing up talking about it, but it's a good deal from Indeed about sponsored jobs. So if you guys are interested in that, mention code Locked On and mention that you heard it on the show, and they will give you $75 sponsored job credit. So how about that? I have a mouthful of marbles today, so I'll run through this as cleanly as possible. But what to make about all of this? And this weekend that was as chaotic as it could be in the sense of we got a wide win and a wide loss. and it wasn't like a close win and a close loss, 2 close losses, 2 close wins. It was the one's extreme one way and the other extreme the other way. And that kind of puts you in a place of, well, where's the in-between with this? Nashville's now 23, 21-4. They're still chasing a wild card spot. But that wild card spot, and I think everybody in the Predators organization knows how wild all this has gotten, is that they have 3 teams in front of them, and it's 51 points to get into this final wild card spot. The Predators have 50. There are 3 teams in front of them that have 51 points. And if that puts them, if everything stays the same, which I don't think it will, by the time the Tuesday game rolls around, where all these teams have the same point amount, like Anaheim, San Jose, California, Los Angeles, all the teams in California have 51 points. If that stays the same on Tuesday and the Predators win, they immediately go in front of everybody because they will have 52 points because the Predators have 50 points. But everybody seems to notice right now. Barry Trotz talked about this on 102.5 The Game and mentioning in a different context of trading and wanting to make moves. And a lot of teams, if not all the teams in the league, feel the same way of, hey, we want to make moves, but we can't right now. We don't feel comfortable enough right now because if you lose 2 games, you're out of the playoff picture. If you win 2 games, you could be in the top 3 spot in your division. It's not really like that in the Central at all, as the Central's been kind of 3 teams and then everybody else in the Central division. I guess Utah is trying to work their way in that conversation, but that gap between Utah and Minnesota is still pretty wide. But with everybody else, I know specifically in the Pacific and Atlantic, it's ridiculously close. And Trotz talked about this in the sense of trading guys and wanting to make moves, not with him particularly, but talking to other GMs of saying, hey, yeah, we'd like to do stuff, but we don't know what position we're in right now. And we don't know if we're in playoff position or not. And that's what it's been like with the Predators lately. And again, got to give credit to where they were in the beginning of the year, where they were awful and now they're competing for a playoff spot, but it's got to be for at least almost a month now where they've come right up to the wild card, but they have not been in that wild card seat yet. They come right up to it, right up to that line. I don't know if there's a bolded line that divides who gets in and who gets out. They've been right. I made the whole doorstep analogy that my dad had commented on and keeps a whole track record of the analogies I make, if you guys have seen that. But they've come right up to it, and they just haven't been able to pass that threshold. In talking about the scheduling and the what if of it all, and we're going to get into it because I think it is valid in this situation. This is not good scheduling, in my opinion, especially knowing that these 2 teams have been really good for a while, and putting them back to back is a choice, especially in this part of the season where things are so condensed because we're coming up to the Olympic break soon here where no one plays for 2 weeks. I don't know who makes the schedules. I don't know if it's the league. I don't know if the Predators have any say in it at all. I think it's just the league, but you have 2 divisional leaders on back-to-back nights on the road, and you're battling for a wild card spot. That's brutal, y'all. That's brutal. That's rough. Like, you gotta give the Predators credit in that sense of, I know you don't want to complain or create excuses about anything here, but that's brutal. That's rough to get through. And at the same time, too, you can argue, oh, yeah, well, the playoffs are brutal. This is what a playoff atmosphere is going to be like. This is what playoffs are going to be like. Now, in rebuttal to that, there seems to be at least a 1-day break between playoff games, and they've been very lenient on this sense in the past. So there won't be back-to-backs from what I remember in the playoffs like this for teams to play back-to-back. And even then, it's 2 road games in the same place. So in my opinion, this was extreme as it gets for the Predators this year, essentially, in playing 2 really good teams, 2 of the best teams in the league, in back-to-back nights on the road. So in the credit building up to this, answering the question what this whole segment is about, what do we make of this road trip, essentially? Now, the Colorado game That's really, really, really good. Essentially, that they competed, they didn't heel off, they stayed toe-to-toe with them for as long as they could until Colorado gave them the chance to push ahead. And that is exactly what they did in this game. And that they controlled the game from the beginning. And that was the book definition of what you want to see from this Predators team from every single game, every game to the rest of the season, and hopefully into the playoffs. They competed completely, dominated that game against a legit team, a completely legit team. Vegas, on the other hand, was the different outcome. As I mentioned, I think there's the excuse with the 24 hours before. And, as I mentioned, the defense was a little overwhelmed and there was a lot going on in that sense. And, there might be the exhaust factor with that too, but it is what it is. But you got to think of it as well of, would there have been a different outcome in this if there was some separation or some division or better timing, essentially? That's how I feel about this. Like, say if they had a day off or they had a 2-day break, would this have been closer? Would this have been more competitive? I almost said it again. Would the Predators come out with a win here and suddenly be on a freight train speeding down the tracks right now have wins against two of the best teams in the NHL if they had a break in between this, or 2 days break in between this? How much of fatigue played a role into this? And essentially where they should get credit in playing two divisional leaders back-to-back nights. That's my opinion on this, is that I think this could have been a game that the Predators could have won against the Golden Knights if they had some time to recover a little bit, because you're facing a machine like Colorado in Denver and come out with that result. That's got to take some sort of toll. It will be interesting and exciting to hear from these players about the back-to-back games of this, and do they think the Golden Knights game would have been different? But in my opinion, what to make of all this, in my opinion, is still very, very good. And kind of, I don't know what the right word is. Maybe just putting off the Golden Knights loss and specifically looking at the Avalanche win. Oh my goodness. You're seeing a ton of good things. You saw a team dominate, not just dominate the best team in the NHL, which could go down. I don't have the records up right now, but this Avalanche team could go down as one of the better teams in NHL history. Dominated them like no other team has this year. And I think I saw another stat. The Predators have the most wins, or played the Avalanche the best this year out of anyone the NHL has. I take so much good out of all of that in this road trip, and saying, yes, the Golden Knights game wasn't good. It is what it is, but this was a massive win. And you have to say, playing an Avalanche team like that and the team that they are could take a toll, especially playing the next night against a legit team. And then you get individually into this. Roman Josi is playing unbelievably well right now. Steven Stamkos's play has skyrocketed. Philip Forsberg is really starting to get into a little bit of a flow now. Luke Evangelista is out there just setting up plays here and there. Juuse Saros has been massive right now. He's been huge for them. He's just been huge all year. You have your best players clicking right now and rolling. Really put that on display in the Colorado game. Even in the Golden Knights loss, you still managed to score and take a lead through half of the game. I think there is a lot of victories in this that outweigh the negative or the weird purgatory area of what this weekend was. And that's going to be critical going into Tuesday's game. And we're not going to talk about that because I've talked for almost 40 minutes now. And we have another podcast episode to do this week to lead into the Buffalo game. But Buffalo's coming to town. This ain't your mama's Buffalo. This ain't your daddy's Buffalo. This is a Buffalo that is trying to get into the playoffs for the first time since 2011. You know how old I was in 2011? Last time this Buffalo team got in the playoffs, I was 13. I'm 28 now. That's crazy to say. That's crazy to say. It's been forever since Buffalo got into the playoffs, but they are in that final wild card spot in the East, and they're going to bring their best game to Bridgestone Arena, and it will be an interesting, great competitive game as the Predators are trying to get into the playoffs as well, trying to get into that final wild card seat. But that is all I got for you guys today. Very entertaining episode, very theatrical episode. If you want to get more of a VIP access into Locked On Predators, Everydayers Club, if you never want to miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayers Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. And you can find that on lockedonpodcast.com/Everydayer Club. If you're interested in seeing more of me, I am at Jack G. Williams on Twitter/X. I am the beat reporter for the Hockey News Nashville Predators. You can find it on there. Make an account. It is free. No hassle at all. And if you guys are just interested on Locked On Predators, find us on Twitter at LO_Predators. Facebook and Instagram, we are just Locked On Predators. But thank you guys for listening to my rambling and all the marbles I had in my mouth today. Appreciate y'all. Very thankful for y'all. Grateful for y'all. Enjoy these conversations we had, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow and talking more on Locked On Preds.